All right, we are looking at Algebra 2, Section 8-6. And we're talking about the LCD, or the least common denominator. Denominator. And we're going to talk about how this is used in solving rational equations and inequalities. All right, let's look at our first example here. We're going to start off somewhat simply here. 4 over x plus 3 plus 5 over x equals 23 over 18. So the way we're going to solve this is we're going to get rid of this fraction here first, this 5 over 6. We're going to subtract that from both sides. And now I need a common denominator here. I've got 18 and 6. So the least common denominator is going to be 18. And I need to multiply 6 by 3. And so I need to multiply the 5 by 3 as well. So I've got 4 over x plus 3 equals 23 over 18 minus 15 over 18. 23 minus 15 is 8. So I've got 4 over x plus 3 equals 8 over 18. Now, I could reduce this fraction a little bit, but I'm not worried about it right now. I want to solve for x, and I'm going to cross multiply here. So I have 8 times x plus 3 equals 4 times 18. And I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So I have x plus 3 equals all of this stuff. Now I could multiply this together, use my calculator, divide by 8, whatever. Or I can just kind of go 4 and 8. There's 2 left. 18 divided by 2 is 9, so I've got 9 here. So x plus 3 equals 9. Subtract 3 from both sides. X equals 6. Now I'm going to check this x equals 6 here just to make sure that I don't have a 0 in the denominator up here. So if I add 6 plus 3, that's 9, so I don't have a 0 in the denominator, and I don't have an issue with that, so that's okay. And if I went through and checked all of my work there, I would see that x equals 6 is good. Now, you try one. Pretty much the same question with just some different numbers. 2 over x plus 3 plus 3 over 2 equals 9 over 10. All right. Go ahead and pause and do this problem here. Go. All right, see how you did? I'm going to subtract 3 halves from each side, but when I do that, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom both by 5, so I can get a common denominator here. So 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 2 is 10, so I'm going to subtract 15 over 10 from both sides, and then I have 2 over x plus 3 equals 19 minus 15, which is 4 over 10. Which is 2/5. And so I'm just going to reduce that to 2/5 right now. Then I'm going to multiply across. So I've got 2 times x plus 3 equals 2 times 5, which is 10. Divide by 2. X plus 3 equals 5. Subtract 3 from both sides. X equals 2. And 2 plus 3 is 5. It's not 0, so we're all good there. All right, let's get a little bit more complicated here. I've got 2x over x plus 5 minus x squared minus x minus 10 over x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 3 over x plus 3. All right, so this is pretty similar to, I think it was 8-3 or something, where we were simplifying, we were doing these big rational equations. Now we are solving for x. So we've got this equal sign. We're going to try to solve for x. That's what we're going to do this time. So we need a common denominator to do that. This guy is x plus 5. This is x plus 3. Let's see what this is if I were to factor this. Hopefully it's x plus 5 times x plus 3, right? When I multiply together to get 15 and add together to get 8, that is 3 and 5. X plus 5 and x plus 3. Great. So this guy needs an x plus 3, and this denominator needs an x plus 5. And that way I'm getting the least common denominator. I'm going to multiply this one by 3, x plus 3. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And this one I need to multiply by x plus 5. And then I'll have a common denominator among all these guys. So let's rewrite this as 2x times x plus 3 minus, I'm just going to keep this the way it is, x squared minus x minus 10, all over x plus 5 times x plus 3 equals 3 times x plus 5 over x plus 5, x plus 3. Now, from now on, through the rest of this problem, I'm going to kind of ignore the denominator, and I'm just going to start writing it as least common denominator. And we'll look back at it briefly, but for right now, I'm going to kind of ignore it. So I want to subtract this 3x, 3 times x plus 5. I'm going to subtract that from both sides. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to say 2x times x plus 3 minus x squared minus x minus 10 minus 3 times x plus 5. So I've subtracted that from both sides, equals 0. And underneath I have my least common denominator. Whew. Okay, now I'm going to distribute all of this stuff and see what I have left. This goes in here, this negative goes in here, this negative 3 goes in here. 2 times x is 2x squared, times 3 is 6x, negative x squared plus x plus 10 is what I get in there. Minus 3x minus 15 over my least common denominator equals 0. All right, looks like I'm going to need to kind of move over here where I have a little more space. And so I'm going to combine like terms. I've got these two squareds. 2x squared minus 1x squared is just x squared. Okay, so I've done those. And now my x's, positive 6x plus x is 7x minus 3x is 4x. Plus 4x, so I've done those x's. And now I just have this 10 and this negative 15, so that's negative 5 over my least common denominator equals 0. Don't forget the equals 0. That's a big part of this. Now I'm going to look at this up here and factor my numerator here. So what do I multiply together to get negative 5? Add together to get positive 4. Let's see, x minus 1, x plus 5. That'll get me negative 5. That'll get me positive 4. Great. Or my least common denominator equals 0. So now I just need to solve each of these for 0. X minus 1 equals 0. And x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5 from both sides. Add 1 to both sides. X equals 1 and x equals negative 5. Now, we're going to see that this is the only answer that works because negative 5 is not going to work. Look at our least common denominator here, x plus 5, x minus 3. If I put negative 5 in here, then the denominator would be 0, and we can't have that. And so x minus 5 doesn't work. We could look at it right here, so let's look at it this way too. So x minus 1, x plus 5. And remember, our least common denominator was x plus 3 times x plus 5. So we can see, oh look, these x plus 5s go away, and we just are left with this one to solve for 0. So that's another way to kind of look at it. If you wanted to write your least common denominator back in here toward the end, then you can ignore that possible solution here that's not 1. All right, let's go ahead and do, so for this lesson, I only have 2 other examples. I don't know what happened, but I guess they're just kind of long. So here is another example. I've got p squared minus p minus 5 over p plus 1. I don't know why they do p. P is such an awkward letter to have when we're writing. Okay, p squared minus 7 over p minus 1 plus p over 1. Okay. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to do this one hopefully kind of slow, and you can kind of work ahead kind of a thing. So we're kind of doing this like as a we try, where you're doing stuff and I'm doing stuff at the same time. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I need to find a common denominator. And so I've got p plus 1, and I've got p minus 1, and I've got 1. And so I need to decide what is my least common denominator, and it's p plus 1, p minus 1. And this 1 is fine. I'm just going to, this is going to be multiplied top and the bottom in order to make it so I have the same denominator for all of these guys. All right, so let's try this out. So for this one, I'll rewrite the whole thing so that we can see it. P squared minus p minus 5. I need to multiply the top and the bottom both by p minus 1. P plus 1, p minus 1 equals p squared minus 7 times p, I need to multiply this one, top and the bottom, by p plus 1. So p minus 1, p plus 1. Plus, now this one needs to be multiplied by both of these, top and bottom. So p times p minus 1, p plus 1, over p minus 1, p plus 1. Okay, so here's my common denominator, p minus 1, p plus 1. And so now I can somewhat ignore the denominator and get to work on all of this stuff on top. So I'm going to have p squared minus p. I'm going to rewrite it all on one side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract this mess so it can go over here, and I'm going to subtract this mess from both sides. I'm not going to write all that out. I'm just going to tell you what I'm about to do, because that's a lot. So I'm going to say minus p squared plus 7 times p plus 1, and I'm subtracting this one as well, minus p times p minus 1, p plus 1. And this equals 0, and this is all over my common denominator, least common denominator. All right, now I have a lot of work to do. Oh, last time I subtracted. Okay, it's fine. So now, let's look at this. So we're going to have to do some FOIL here. We're going to have to do some FOIL here. And this is we're going to have to multiply. We're going to do a special thing. So let's rewrite this one first. This is p times, so this needs to be multiplied by all of these terms, and this needs to be multiplied by all these terms. So p times p squared minus p minus 5 minus 1 times p p squared minus p minus 5. Okay, so that takes care of that mess. Minus, now we're going to have to FOIL this mess. So we've got p times p squared is p cubed. Negative 7 times p is negative 7p. Let's see here, p squared and 1, that'll get me positive p squared. And then I'm just missing negative 7 times 1, and that'll get me negative 7. Okay, that mess is done. Now this one, I'm going to multiply these two together first, and then I'm going to multiply by the p. So I'm going to say subtract p times these two multiplied together. The reason I'm doing that is because p minus 1 times p plus 1, this is a difference of squares. And so I know that if I were to FOIL all this out, I'd have p squared minus 1. And then all that equals 0. All of it is over the least common denominator. So it's really important as you do these problems to not give up, and also just do one piece at a time and make sure everything is all neat and clear and well organized, and then you shouldn't have any problems. Now I'm going to distribute this p in here. So that's p cubed minus p squared minus 5p. I'm going to distribute this negative 1 in here. Negative p squared plus p plus 5. I'm going to distribute this negative 1 in here. Minus p cubed plus 7p minus p squared plus 7. And then I'm going to distribute this negative p in here. Negative p cubed plus p, all that equals 0 over the least common denominator. Whew. Okay, now I'm going to just combine like terms and we'll be pretty good here. P cubed, and the only other p cubed, oh, there are two other p cubes, aren't there? All right, so this p cube and this p cube cancel, subtract to be 0. So I have a negative p cubed. Negative p cubed. Okay, so the p cubes are done. Now I've got a negative p squared, another negative p squared, so that's negative 2p squared, negative 3p squared. All right, now the p's. Negative 5 plus 1, that's negative 4, plus 7 is positive 3, plus 1 is positive 4, plus 4p. And then I have a positive 5 and a positive 7. That gives me positive 12. Equals 0. Okay, I'm ignoring my common denominator altogether right now. Now, I've got a negative p cubed here, and I want to factor this mess. I'm going to move everything over to the right. I'm going to add p cubed, add 3p squared, subtract 4p, add 12 to both sides, so that I end up with p cubed plus 3p squared minus 4p plus 12 equals 0. That way, I have a positive p cubed here, and it's going to be easier for me to factor this. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use my synthetic long division here, or synthetic division, not synthetic long division. And I'm going to see, so if I plug in a number here and I don't get a remainder over here, then I know that that number is a factor in here, that p is a value that works. So I'm going to plug in 2 because 2 is almost always one of the factors in these problems in the book. It's just the way it is. 2 is almost always one of these. So I'm going to plug in 2 and see what happens. 1 goes down here. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. Times 2 is 10. Minus 4 is 6. And then I have a 2 times 6 is 12. Now, oops, now see, wait, oh no, that I did something, there's a 12, an issue here with the 12. Oh, here's the issue. 5 plus 7 is positive 12. And so I needed to subtract 12 from both sides. So I have a negative 12 and a negative 12. Phew, that was a close one. Okay, so I have no remainder, so that means that 2 is a factor of this, or is a 0, and so p equals 2. But it's going to also equal some other stuff, probably. So let's get my depressed polynomial here. P squared plus 5p plus 6 equals 0. And now I can factor this way. P and p, so what do I multiply together to get 6, add together to get 5? That's 2 and 3 equals 0. So p equals negative 2 and negative 3 and positive 2. So those are my solutions here. And I can plug these back into my denominator up here and make sure that they work out. Negative 2, negative 3, positive 2. None of that makes this 0, so we're good there. Here are my solutions. This is where this crazy graph crosses the x-axis, or the p-axis. All right, one more, and this is a u-try. 1 over n plus 2 plus 1 over n minus 2 equals 3 over n squared plus minus 4. All right, now I'm going to give you a hint on this one before you get started here that's going to make your life way easier if you follow this hint here. N squared minus 4 is something we call difference of squares, and we already saw that a little bit up here with this p minus 1 times p plus 1 became p squared minus 1. Difference of squares, p minus 1, p plus 1, p squared minus 1. There's a very similar thing going on here with this n squared minus 4. So hint, hint, if you can use that hint correctly, then you will save yourself a whole bunch of work here. All right, and here's the last example of the day, and it's a u-try. Go ahead and get to work, pause and get started. Okay, let's see how you did. All right, now this, I'm going to rewrite this as 3 over n minus 2 n plus 2. That is what n squared minus 4 factors to be n minus 2, n plus 2. And so I've got n plus 2 and n minus 2 here, and so if I just need to multiply this by n minus 2 over n minus 2, this by n plus 2 over n plus 2, and then I have my common denominator. So let's try that out, or my least common denominator. N plus 2 times n minus 2, 1 times n minus 2, plus, so I'm just going to keep this denominator here, n minus 2, I've got to multiply the top and the bottom by n plus 2, equals my common denominator over 3, or under 3, sorry, because I've already got both of those, n minus 2 and n plus 2 there. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of ignore my denominator, and I've got n minus 2 plus n plus 2 equals 3. And then I say, okay, if I subtract, so now I just need to say, okay, negative 2, positive 2, that's 0. N plus n is 2n equals 3, divide by 2, n equals 3 halves, or 1 and 1 half. And that's the answer. All right, got a lot of work here, but if you keep organized and just kind of take it slow and easy, you should be all right. So good luck on the homework. Test coming soon.